The Haitian sensation Magny, who returns to action at the end of the month, where he's facing Max Griffin on the 26th of March. Neil, great to sit down and chat. How are things with you today?
I'm doing great. Just got done my first workout of the day. Body's feeling well. 2 weeks out from fight night, so I'm feeling great.
You mentioned there off camera that you've just done training with Curtis Blaydes. What is the vibe like between you sharing the same card?
Man, it's great. It's definitely a motivation. We kind of bring out the best in each other in the gym. So if we're doing burpees and we're trying to see who did the most burpees in a second, and you count his burpees, like, oh, he did 10, I got to get 12. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're constantly feeding off each other's energy to do better. And then even some days when you walk in, you're not feeling your best. Even you can kind of feed off each other's energy too. So if I walk in, I'm kind of dragging ass from the day just being too long and the workout beat me up too bad, I can look at him pushing through, like, all right, cool. If he's doing it, I can do it too. It kind of wakes you up, motivates you to do better.
I think your fight's being confirmed for co-main, and Curtis is obviously the main. So, are you guys going to be having the same people in the corner, and kind of what's that experience going to be like for your coaches who may have a short kind of gap between?
Yeah. So right now he's the main, I'm the co-main, and we're sharing Cody Donovan in the corner. So it's going to be kind of hectic for him to get both fighters ready, go out there, coach, and get back there, get the next fighter ready. But there is a pretty big gap between like when the main event walks out compared to when the co-main event done fighting. So he'll have some overlap to go back there and get Curtis ready, help give him the right mindset and move forward. But we have a great team around us, so I'm sure he's going to go out there and do well. I mean, I work with Christian Aaron for striking. He works with Vinny Lopez for striking. They're two great coaches, two completely different aspects of the game, but they bring out the best in both of us. So regardless of Cody having to work double duty, so to speak, Curtis will be in great hands getting ready for his fight.
Yeah, 100%. Just first and foremost, before we touch on your upcoming fight, I'd just like to get your thoughts on Saturday's main event between two guys in your division, Covington and Masvidal. What was your opinion going into that fight, and did the fight play out as you'd expected?
Yeah, I mean, exactly how I thought it would. I mean, before the fight happened, like, you look at it and see, like, all right, how does Masvidal win this fight? And I think to myself, he's not going to win decision. He probably won't win by submission. His only chance of winning this fight is by knockout. And you look at Covington going in there, it's like, all right, Covington has the opportunity to get a TKO. He has the opportunity to get a submission. He has the opportunity to get a dominant wrestling-based decision. So him having just more ways to win that fight going into it, I feel like the odds were in the favor of Covington winning that fight. And that's exactly how it played out. I mean, wrestling is such a dominant aspect of MMA, and it's not something that you can just pick up in a training camp. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some of these guys have been wrestling since they were 5 years old. And to think that you're going to pick up enough wrestling in 3 months to go out there and stop it is just, it's crazy to say the least. This is absolute craziness.
I believe Stephen A. Smith either tweeted or he said on one of his shows that he was disappointed Masvidal didn't have better wrestling. Why didn't he know he was going to be in for a wrestling match? So give me your opinion on that. Pundits saying that you should just be training wrestling more for a couple of months and that will be okay. Like it's that easy.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very ignorant statement for Stephen A. Smith to make. I mean, that's just what happens when someone's not around the sport for that long. It's not like MMA is such a unique sport because it involves so many different disciplines. And there can be something that a guy is very good at that 3 months is just not enough time to train it. I mean, like I was saying earlier, a guy like Covington, he's wrestled through grade school, wrestled through middle school, wrestled through high school, wrestled through college, wrestled his entire adult life throughout his MMA career. And Masvidal, even though he's been in the sport for the last 20 plus years, he has not been a predominant wrestler. He's been predominantly a striker, more so boxing. So for him to like change his entire approach to mixed martial arts and become this like great defensive wrestler going to a fight with Covington is just, it's just not going to happen. Like, you just do not develop those kind of skill sets in 3 months. It's impossible. And that's what makes MMA interesting. You try to figure out like, all right, cool. This guy has the wrestling department. What skills do I have to kind of beat the wrestling? Do I use jujitsu for my back? Do I use striking to keep him at bay? Do I use judo to make sure that he can't get underneath me? And that's the part that makes it very interesting. But to tell someone like, yeah, you should work your wrestling and I better. No, it's not happening. You're not getting run wrestling in 3 months. It's impossible. If that was the case, I'd be in the 2020 Olympics. Like you just can't run wrestling that fast.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk a little bit about your fight. So, as I mentioned, you're back in action the end of the month, facing Max Griffin. Opinions on Max as an opponent and kind of what you see as his style in relation to yours?
It's an exciting fight. Excuse me. It's a super exciting fight for me. Max is super well-rounded. He's been around the game for a very long time. He and I were actually in the same season, Ultimate Fighter, together back way in 2012. So to get this matchup years later here in UFC, I'm pretty excited about it. But me personally, I think he's a great opponent. I mean, the guy's proven himself time and time again. He's beaten Carlos Condit as well. So he definitely does have the greenness. He definitely does have the skill set to hold his own. So for me, I definitely can't walk in there and think I have this in the bag, because he's definitely a dangerous opponent, a game opponent, and a well-rounded opponent.
You mentioned there about being on the Ultimate Fighter. Well, from my point of view, Neil, these are the worst type of fights when I've got 2 guys who follow my channel who've helped me out, who've come and give me their time. So I hate when I have 2 people who I consider friends fighting. But what was your relationship like with Max on the Ultimate Fighter? Did you have kind of a relationship with him? Can you remember anything like that?
No, I mean, it's very minimal. I mean, like there's very few guys in the sport who I dislike. I mean, even like Max and I are not friends by any means. I mean, we follow each other on Facebook, but that's as far as it goes. And it's not like I don't like the guy or anything like that. I mean, I absolutely wish the guy the best, but it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, at this point, it's we're mixed martial artists. We're all trying to get to that #1 spot and fight for a title and become champions. So for me to have a fight a guy who's an acquaintance of mine, I don't look at it as being a bad thing at all. I mean, if anything, I look at it as a great opportunity for us to go out there and like throw on a great show and both boost our stock. That's what I'm looking to go out there and do, is put on a great performance and really keep progressing my career in the right direction.
You mentioned there that you don't dislike many people in MMA. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Who do you dislike most in mixed martial arts?
Colby Covington. He's a bro. I mean, there's lines that you don't cross, and I feel like he's crossing every last one of those lines. I mean, I can't speak for someone else. I can speak for myself. There's certain things that you stand on that makes you who you are, and I get that he felt that he was in a difficult place and he had to develop this persona in order to keep his job at the UFC and that kind of thing. But I personally just don't feel the way that he's going around it is the best way to do it. And I don't like the representation he puts out there. So I would like nothing more but to slap the shit out of Colby Covington in a cage. That way I don't get arrested for it. So other than that, I mean, there's not many guys in the sport who I dislike.
Do you believe that story about he'd heard rumours that he was gonna not be re-signed to the UFC and that's why he started this? Because there's a lot of people who are quite reserved on the mic who maybe have or wrestling styles like he did before he started all of this. Do you kind of believe that story?
It's very difficult to say. Like everyone has a different relationship with the UFC. Like I've been fortunate over the last 10 years I've been with the company that like I have a very direct relationship with the UFC. So I get to hear things directly from the quote unquote horse's mouth. So if there's something that the UFC wants to see from me or hear from me, like I don't have a middleman. It goes directly to me. So he may have heard that through the grapevines through somebody else. And so it may have been a situation where a manager, a coach, or whomever may be who was talking to UFC was saying like, hey man, do seem like your last fight, they need you to do a little bit more outside the cage or for you to keep your job. And he took that a bit personal and did what he did. But I don't know, man, like there's so many different narratives in MMA. There's so many different ways that words travel throughout the communication chain. So who knows what the actual truth was behind him developing this persona and sticking with it for the last couple of years.
Yeah. You mentioned there about Max Griffin's last fight against Carlos Condit, a guy who you also hold a win over. So what did you kind of make of that performance? Were you impressed by the win over the natural born killer?
Yeah, I was definitely impressed by it because like Max have had before that fight he's on a 3-fight win streak now, I believe.
Mm.
And prior to that fight he had a couple of first round finishes and real quick finishes. So a lot of times you see people that kind of thing happens to people. You think they'll get out there and get overzealous, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna knock everyone out. And you think they will go out there and be like super aggressive, super eager to knock it out, but they get themselves in trouble. But I personally felt as if he handled that fight against Carlos Condit like a real pro, like a true veteran. Like he went out there composed, he went out there and controlled the range, and he really just dominated in every aspect. He dominated in the striking, he dominated in the wrestling, he dominated in the grappling. So seeing him go out there and display all those different skill sets definitely shows the growth in Max as an opponent.
When we see a fight in the UFC between a guy who's got a ranking and a guy who hasn't got a ranking, it's obviously a massive opportunity for that guy, in this case Max, to break into the top 10 or the top 15, but the top 10 in this case. But what's kind of the benefit for you for this fight? Because you're fighting a guy who's probably not going to get you up to up certainly critically to where you want to get to, which is the world title.
For me, it's progress. Do I have a lot to lose in this fight? Taking this fight, yeah, sure, absolutely. Every fight is you have a lot to lose. But for me, it's just progress in the right direction. I mean, at this point, I sat around for 10 months, and my ranking has moved absolutely nowhere. So if I fight Max Griffin and go from 7 to 6 or 8 to 7 or whatever it may be, then I'm okay with that. I mean, you look at Islam, who fought 2 weeks ago. He fought Bobby Green, late replacement, and he went from being ranked number 4 to being ranked number 3. So if beating Max moves me up one slot, I'll take that. That's a lot better than me sitting around for another 12 months without a fight, waiting for these other guys to kind of figure things out and decide that they finally want to fight. So for me, it's all about progress in the right direction. I don't like sitting out. I don't like waiting for fights. So if it means I have to take a big risk in order to get that small reward moving forward in the right direction, so be it. I'll take that chance.
Yeah, 100%. I want to ask you very quickly, because there's a guy who's been in your mouth, or his name's been in your mouth, not the guy, the name has been in your mouth for a number of months.
Like, pause, hold on.
Slip.
No, it's all good.
Khamzat Chimaev, who we've just seen this week, has been announced he's fighting Gilbert Burns, a guy who you wanted to fight, but has got the number 2 guy in the division. What do you make on that fight, and what do you make on the last couple of months with Khamzat, and now training with Darren Till, I believe?
Yeah, man, it's theatrical, to say the least. I mean, at first it was just like, hey, I'm going to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, any weight class kind of thing. Then it became this thing that Colby got the best of me. I'm not sure when I may fight again. Then he came back on the scene. I was like, all right, cool, I'll fight you. Since no one else wants to fight you, I'll fight you. And then he decides to fight a guy that I've beaten. And now it's like, all right, I'm back on the scene again. And he's fighting Gilbert Burns. I mean, in his case, I don't necessarily fault him for fighting Gilbert Burns. I mean, if you look at it at a rankings perspective, I'm 7, Gilbert Burns number 2. I take the fight against Gilbert Burns as well if I was him. So it definitely makes sense for him to jump in and take that kind of fight. How it plays out in my mind, it's going to be interesting, to be honest with you. I mean, is Gilbert going to be able to get him down to the ground and find a submission? I don't see that happening relatively quickly. And then if they decide to stay and strike, who's going to get the best of that? So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Definitely sitting back watching as a fan, taking notes as a future opponent, whether it's Gilbert or Chimaev. So that's definitely a fight that I'm looking forward to watch myself.
You mentioned there as well that the layoff, and I think the first time we spoke, you'd obviously had a little bit of a layoff after the Neil win, but now we've had 10 months have passed since the last fight. So first and foremost, Neil, how does it feel just to be back in action, and just to know in a couple of weeks' time you're back in that cage?
Man, it feels great. This is the moments that I live for. This is what I absolutely love doing. And I'm not one of those guys who takes a huge amount of time off in between fights. You know, I'll take a couple of days, maybe a week after a fight, and I'm right back in the gym getting ready for the next competition. So for me, these long layoffs, I don't enjoy it at all. So the fact that I get to finally go out there and let my work shine, let my work speak for itself, and show all the fans what I've been working on the last couple of months, I'm super excited for the opportunity. I look forward to going out there and just fucking put on an amazing show.
Yeah, 100%. Just very quickly before we end, I wanted to touch on something. And something I often see come up on my Instagram timeline is your stories and the memes and the GIFs that you put on. You seem to be quite a fan of them. So So how many hours in a week do you spend trawling through Instagram or trawling through social media trying to find them gifts to post?
Honestly, not that much. Like, so between trading and like investing and spending family time, I have a very short window from like 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Where I get to like actually give myself an hour on the phone and do it. And then like, there are just some really good pages that I like tend to engage with and follow. And like, there'll just be some good content out there that like kind of speaks to me. And I made add my own spin to the memes and that kind of thing and make my own or whatever. So it's actually very minimal time that I spent on there. But I tend to engage with a lot of like-minded people on social media, so a lot of that stuff kind of comes easy or comes naturally or just kind of pops up pretty often on my pages.
100%. Do you have a favorite that comes to mind recently that you've looked at and just that really made you laugh, really made the giggles going?
No, this is just too many to choose from. I mean, there's just when we got to the point that I have to like even have like a close friends list that I'm able to share some with, because just like yeah, I can put that out there. That's just too far from the quote unquote brand. But overall, it's just having a great time, and I feel like that's my quick moment to disconnect at the end of the day. Just be able to jump on social media, checking with people, post some funny things here and there, and just kind of move forward from there.
100%. Final question on your career, Neil. I won't ask you for the prediction because it's the most boring question that I'm sure you guys get. But what are the goals for 2022? What do you want to accomplish in the rest of this calendar year?
The goal is get myself in title contention. I want to end this year being the guy that's knocking on the door to fight for the title. I know I've said that time and time again, but I'm here. I'm here to make it happen this year. I don't have any more excuse. I have nothing set in my way. At this point, I feel like it's up to me to go out there and get it done. So for me, I'm going to get myself knocking on the door for title contention before the year's up. If it hasn't before that, great. But this is the year that I knock on the door for title contention to make it happen.
Amazing. Well, it all starts on the 26th of March with Max Griffin, and I very much look forward to seeing you back in action. Very much thank you for your time. And if anything you want to say, sign off with, sponsors, the floor is yours to end.
No problem, man. It's a pleasure talking to you as well. It's always a great time catching up with you. But more importantly than me, make sure you guys check out mission111.org. It's a great organization that I work with. They do mission work in both Haiti and the Philippines, and sometimes here in the States as well. So check out mission111.org and see all the great work that they're doing around the world.